All right, this video is a warning to be careful what you follow in the media because sometimes it's not always 100% accurate. It's just not 100% accurate. So you got to be careful what you follow, and we're going to remind you of a great thing that the Detroit Lions have going with their practice schedule coming up, and I am here to tell you that Detroit Lions football, I want you to hear me on this. Detroit Lions football is 4 weeks, 1 month away from practice. And they are 6 weeks away from playing a preseason game that we can get our eyes on. And they are about 5 weeks away from practices that are open to the public. How cool is that? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the one position the Detroit Lions may still need to address, but how Brad Holmes said, I don't know if we necessarily do have to address it. So we're going to talk about all these things. But first, let's talk about some things that I was seeing. And this is an article coming out from Detroit Jock City that said Lions making obvious mistake with preseason practice schedule. Now, as some of you may know, the Detroit Lions decided instead of having what could be the 3 OTA sessions and a minicamp, they limited an OTA and they said no mandatory minicamp for the players. They said rest, get healthy, do those kind of things, really fully enjoy some more time in the summer because players need to report earlier because the Detroit Lions have the Hall of Fame game. So we know we had the Hall of Fame game, and we knew that, the Detroit Lions, what would be happening here is that they would be able to start early. But this article went on to say something very unique. They were talking about how the practice schedule, you see the first practice schedule here, if I zoom in on it, the first practice schedule here says July 26, which is only 5 days ahead, of their first game, their first preseason game. All right. Now, this article, they took it to mean that the Lions won't be in camp until July 26. Meanwhile, the Chargers have their players reporting to training camp on July 16, with the first practice being July 17. I am here to tell you, I don't have any report of official dates. I am here to tell you that's probably about when the Lions will report to camp as well. They're going to report that mid-July time, mid to semi-late. No, it's going to be mid-July, somewhere around the 15th to the 20th, somewhere in that window, most likely. The first public practice is July 26th. This is what went out to all the fans. That is for the Lions loyal members, a.k.a. season ticket holders. So they're able to get the opportunity to go to a practice before the rest of us. There's some joint practices that they're going to have, but overall, this schedule release had a total of 10 dates. I promise you, there are more than 10 practices before the NFL season. There are way more than 10 practices before the NFL season. Those are just the ones that are open to the public. So don't worry, the Detroit Lions are getting into training camp early, and what I love about getting into training camp early is it starts the NFL season earlier for us fans. Think about it. I'm sitting here. We're going to talk about stuff over the next month. 100%. Keep watching. In fact, we're partnering with a new sponsor here pretty soon, like some things that I think you're going to want to really check into for good deals on tickets and things like that. So keep watching videos here. But the rest of this is just figuring out what are some things we're hearing. Maybe it's a signing here. Maybe it's a holdout there. Maybe it's an injury update. There could be little things like that. But when training camp starts, we get to start hearing about what players are going off, what rookies are doing. All of that kind of stuff is what is important instead of just hearing about what we have to say. Now, I like to think I like what we have to say, but it's just talking about things like what I'm going to talk about in the back half of this video. All right? And that is the defensive end position. This is another article. This is on Heavy. All right, heavy.com. And it's saying that Brad Holmes is saying something that we don't want to hear. I, again, disagree with this, right? I think right now, sometimes people try and get people to come in and watch or read an article with a catchy negative title. Like with a catchy negative title. You don't need that, right? Because sometimes things are good. This is, again, I'm going to remind everybody, this is a team that went from 3-13-1 to 9-8 to 12-5 to 15-2. And in that 12-5 year, we made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. And by the way, the year before that, yes, we lost our first game of the playoffs, but we still made it to the divisional round. Like, that's something that I think a lot of people forget. We were just the number 1 overall seed. All right? So it was a big deal. But sometimes bad news is actually good news. All right, so the bad news that this article is talking about is it's saying that Zidarius Smith, which we know about, all right, when he was during his appearance at this year's BET Awards alongside his girlfriend, all right, Cash Doll, which, by the way, I butchered that in an earlier thing. I had no idea who Cash Doll was. My bad. So sorry. I now fully understand. I am now hip. I am with it, all right? And he said, we both know where I want to be. Hopefully I can get back to Detroit because the coaching staff and everybody in the front office are great. When I'm there, I feel like a leader and like I can influence the young guys and do great things. Hopefully I can get back to where I want to be in Detroit. Okay, we know he wants to be there. That's fantastic. All right, so everybody's saying, like, well, what's the problem? Well, here is Brad Holmes talking about things. He said that Hutchinson, and when talking about the defensive ends, when he was chatting with Chris Long, he was asked about where they're at the ends, and he kind of avoided talking about it. He didn't. He didn't avoid talking about it, but he said that Hutch looks explosive, which is fantastic news. And Marcus Davenport is looking just as good, which is fantastic news. He also talked about how great Al-Quadri Muhammad was playing and how he played really good football last year. And he talked about Ahmed Hassanin having the most productive of all the edge rushers in that class. So they went for production rather than anything else. And by the way, his RAS score shows that he is athletic enough as well. So instead of talking about a way to get Smith or another defensive end, he talked about how good the team is already. I think there is a world where we have to understand, yes, we don't necessarily love the edge room, but we have what is arguably, not even arguably, before he got hurt, he was the best defensive end in football in Aiden Hutchinson. He's back in the mix. Even if he's just a top 5 guy, that's good enough. And then you have 3 other guys that you can rotate in. Now, do I want 5 or 6 deep? Yes. Would I rather go out and sign Zidarius Smith for the right amount of money? Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't want to be up a creek without a paddle middle of the season again. I don't want to have that. But here's the truth. Even if we go out and get Zidarius Smith and Hutchinson, oh man, that would be awful. But what if he gets hurt again? Or what if he has to miss time? We're still up a creek without a paddle. It's still not good enough. What you need to rely on is your absolute mega stars to stay healthy. This team is going to be in trouble if we enter the playoffs without Hutch. This team is going to be in trouble if we enter the playoffs without Goff, if we enter the playoffs without Gibbs, without St. Brown, without Penei Sewell. Like, we're hoping McNeil gets healthy enough in time for the playoffs. Like, no matter what, we're going to be in trouble if we don't have these absolute superstars available. That's how it works. Oftentimes when you get to the playoffs, it's a lottery ticket. I mean, and so it's a lottery ticket, and the healthiest team that gets hot at the right time ends up making noise. That's what we want. Stay healthy toward the end of the year. It's not about just loading up now, because no end that we go get right now will make up for if Hutchinson ends up getting hurt. All right. Hey, thank you for watching. Hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Hit that subscribe button. Why not? We're still here. See ya.